In Pit Lane, proudly brought to you by the Motorsports Fan Zone at Crown Resort Promenade, March 8th to 19th, the place to be for all your Grand Prix merchandise. And with thanks to the following show supporters. Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of In Pit Lane. Well, as you can see, we're in the little studio tonight as we prepare for this weekend's Australian Formula One Grand Prix. Speaking of the Formula One Grand Prix and the Albert Park circuit in competition this weekend, will be in the Formula 4 category will be Luis Leeds. And Luis has been racing all around the world. He's sitting next to me right now, actually. Let's show him, because he's a good-looking young fellow and he's gone to all sorts of trouble. So let's show. There's Luis. Welcome to the show.
Cheers, Brett. Thank you for having me.
Good that you're back. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on and find out about this weekend and also your great adventures around Europe and around the world. But right now, as we said, the Grand Prix is just around the corner and all of the things that make the Grand Prix week special are happening right now. So let's find out all about them with the In Pit Lane Motorsport News. The build-up has begun for this weekend's Australian Grand Prix at Albert Park. All up, over 1,200 tonnes of freight has arrived to transform the venue into the epicentre of world motorsport.
Sea freight actually began first. We had 500 tonnes arrive over the course of the week. Since then, from Wednesday, Formula One broadcast arrived. That was Wednesday. They began to build 2 flights or 200 tonnes worth of equipment over the broadcast compound at the back here. And since then, another 5 flights have come in, which is equivalent of another 500 tonnes. So as Andrew said, 700 tonnes alone just in the F1 team's freight, another 500 tonnes worth of sea freight alone. So an enormous logistical effort to be able to deliver this amazing event.
All this effort is the culmination of a full year of hard work behind the scenes by the team at the Australian Grand Prix Corporation.
There's probably 500 to 1,000 workers who are going to be putting the finishing touches to corporate facilities, catering areas, grandstands. The huge amount of activations will start bumping in over the next few days. And what it is, it's the grand final week for all the staff at the Grand Prix Corporation and our huge loyal group of suppliers to pull it together and put on a show that Melburnians, Victorians and Australians are proud of.
Melbourne's F1 fans got an early start to the Grand Prix with a display of Formula One and motorsport-related merchandise at the Crowd Promenade on South Bank. Overseen by a 10-metre tall Daniel Ricciardo smiling down on proceedings, In Pit Lane's Doc Casey asked attendees of the Motorsports Fan Zone for their thoughts on this weekend's big race.
Are you excited that the Formula One Grand Prix is going to be here next week?
Oh, yes. Extremely. Look forward to it every year.
Do you follow it around the world? Have you seen it in other circuits?
We have seen it. We've been to Monte Carlo. I grew up in South Africa at seeing it even at Kyalami 100 years ago.
Back a long time.
Yeah.
Right. And you live here now?
Oh, yes.
Fantastic. That's great. You've got one in your home city now. John?
I'm from Italy and I've been to Monza, been to Le Mans, and I follow this every year.
It's a great place to be. I'm looking forward for the Grand Prix, to be honest. I'm just looking around at these beautiful cars around. And hopefully we're heading down to the Grand Prix next week.
Very.
And looking forward for it.
What do you think of Daniel Ricciardo's move over to Renault?
Oh, look, it's interesting. It'll be hard to see him get back in the, on the podium at the start, I reckon. Just moving from Red Bull over to Renault. But it'll be interesting. Different change of dynamic.
I think that's strange. But I think he got his opinion why he's doing that, and so it's his choice.
He has his reasons.
Yeah.
Well, I think Daniel's doing the right thing for Daniel, and I honestly hope that things go well for him and in his favour.
Yeah, we all do. John, what do you think?
Oh, the same. Actually, he had to get out because obviously there's some internal friction there, and you can't function well when there's politics involved,
Yeah, it's interesting. It was quite a shock, actually. I was surprised. I thought he would have stayed with Red Bull for the championship because they're in with the first 3 cars. But I think I don't know, maybe they're going to be in the championship in the next few years. We never know.
The window might be open for them, so we wish them all the best as well too. And lastly, who do you think is going to win next weekend?
I don't know. I want Vettel to win.
Oh, you're a Vettel. You're a bit of a Ferrari closet fan, are you?
Daniel Ricciardo is my driver, but I want Ferrari to win the championship. It's been a while.
We all hope it.
Definitely Lewis Hamilton again.
I think Renault, just because I'm here, standing here right next to Renault, so I think they might win, yeah.
Well, I'm hoping for Ferrari because I was born and bred into Ferrari Tifosi.
Yep.
And, I can't change my
So that's a Vettel vote?
allegiance. Yeah. It is. It is.
Vote. What about yourself, John?
Same here. I was born in Italy, and I'd be charged with treason if I said anything else anyway.
We wouldn't want you to go to jail, but you're over here in Australia anyway, John. That's fantastic. Good luck to both of you.
Meanwhile, down at Phillip Island, the traditional start to the Grand Prix week for many fans, the annual Phillip Island Historic Festival of Motorsport attracted another huge crowd of enthusiastic race fans. The car park gathering of clubs was once again an off-track feature with a huge turnout celebrating 50 years of the Ford Capri, the Tirana and Melbourne's own sports car, the Bolwell, with possibly the largest gathering of the mark in one place ever. On track there was plenty of action. Guido Belgiorno Nettis took 2 victories in what might be the final local appearance of his Ferrari 156 Formula 1 car. But a DNF in the feature race handed the win to the ridiculously fast locally built Hardman JH1 of David Hardman, who led home a field of much more powerful cars in Groups Q&R Racing. With the big Formula 5000s taking a break from the card, it was left to Tom Tweedy's Elfin MS7 and the Nolan Chev of Daniel Nolan to provide the V8 muscle. Tweedy was in a class of his own, taking out a comfortable win from Nolan and the Pro Sports 3000 of William Porter. There was another huge field in the Group S sports cars with more V8 muscle dominating the field. Demetrius Constantine in his gorgeous 71 Corvette led home the Carrera of Wayne Seabrook and Brett Smith's very fast 280Z. Ford Sierras were the car to beat in the Heritage Touring cars, with the ex-Tony Longhurst Ford of James Vernon leading home Melbourne driver Brian Sala and Metodia Karen Filosky in a Sierra clean sweep. And if you're going to celebrate a 50th birthday, do it with a win. The Capri V6 of Tony Gilfus won the under 3 litre Group N race to give the Capri fans present another reason to celebrate. And in Pit Lane we'll have a special half-hour show dedicated to the Historic Classic coming up in April. Stay tuned for more details. And we'll have more news, some international news a little bit later on in the program. We're going to take a break right now on In Pit Lane, and when we come back, we're going to preview this weekend's Australian Formula 4 Championship opening round with our guest, Luis Leeds. Don't go away. This is In Pit Lane, and we'll be right back. Okay, I don't know. I'm imagining that's supposed to be on the lower third now, but anyway, we'll go there. If we can come back to me, that would be good. There we are. We're having technical problems. Being in the new studio, we've got some technical problems, but we want to say thank you to the motorsports fans. And we went there on Saturday and spoke to a lot of people there. And you saw the giant Daniel Ricciardo there, 10 metres tall, Daniel Ricciardo, and of a night time, every hour, flames shoot out of his head. I kid you not. That's got to be a photo opportunity. Head down to the Crown Promenade and see that. Goes right throughout the weekend, finishes on Monday. So if you don't pick up your merchandise at the track, you can pick it up at the Crown Promenade as well. And thank you to everybody at the Motorsports Fan Zone for supporting In Pit Lane and getting us back on air for season 2019. Now, just a reminder that coming up this Friday at the Motorsports Fan Zone at 8 p.m, we're going to be doing a live stream from the fans, and we're going to be talking about everything that happened at Albert Park, because obviously the Formula 1 cars will hit the track for the first time on Friday, and then we'll have a better idea of what's actually happening. Of course, testing is pretty irrelevant nowadays. There's all sorts of fun and games taken there. But obviously after the opening couple of practice sessions, we will know a lot more about that on Friday. So Friday at 8 o'clock, you can find out all about that on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel and In Pit Lane Facebook page. Okay, now we'll also tell you that coming up a little bit later on in the program for you watching on channels on the YouTube channel and Facebook, our guest tonight, Green Hatch Blues, will be joining us, our musical guest. If you like your blues music, you're going to love this. He's coming up with 2 songs a little bit later on in the show. So Green Hatch Blues, Luke will be joining us a little bit later on in the program. But right now, I think we're just about ready to go back to channel 31 and resume our chat with Luis Leeds. So, Pete, if you will do the honours.
Coming in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Welcome back to In Pit Lane. Well, coming up, of course, this weekend at Albert Park is the Australian Formula One Grand Prix, but it's also a very important weekend for the support categories as well. One of the support categories with the biggest field that they've ever had in the category in Australia is the Australian Formula 4 Championship. Someone who was a regular in the Formula 4 Championship a couple of years ago is back in Australia and back in the Formula 4s this weekend at Albert Park, and we'll be finding out all about that in just a moment. But he's also, since we last had him on the program, he has been all around the world and had all sorts of amazing adventures. Let's find out about them now with our special guest, Luis Leeds. Luis, thanks for joining us.
No worries.
Now, you have been on quite the adventure. I mean, how old were you when you left Australia?
I was 15, actually. It was January 2016, and I was heading off to Europe.
So where were you based?
I was based in Milton Keynes. So, yeah, I lived with a foster family, actually.
So that's a huge thing for a kid at 15. I mean, most of it's for 15, sort of, you know, like it's hard leaving. You hear about the footballers and say, oh, they've got to move out, and they're 17 and 18. You're 15. You're on the other side of the world. Was it particularly daunting?
Well, it was actually kind of tricky because it was summer in Melbourne. So I was just saying goodbye to all my friends and stuff, and next thing you know, I'm in freezing cold England.
Lovely England.
Yeah, my very first test day was at Alton Park, and it was 2 degrees and raining. So yeah, it was a nice introduction to British Formula 4.
So when you're driving the British Formula 4 cars, is there much difference in those cars from what you were driving here?
Exactly the same. So that's why Australian F4 is actually such a good category if you want to learn and progress into European categories.
It's interesting because, I mean, it's obviously been a very controversial category with, you know, dropping the Formula Ford and all the rest of it. From your point of view, you know, from a young person's point of view, what do you think you learned from Formula 4 that you took over there that you wouldn't have learned if you'd have come straight out of, say, karts and into Formula Ford, for instance?
Well, I learned how to actually control a car with wings and slicks, and that was most important for me. I did race Formula Ford, and I loved every single minute of racing that car. But when I went over to England, I realised how important it was to learn actually how to race quite close to someone behind and deal with aero wash.
We were told that many, many years ago, back probably about 12 years ago now, Trevor Carlin spoke to us and he said, you know, that one of the problems for young Australian drivers, he said, you come over here with Formula Ford experience and you've got to relearn because it is that different, and that sort of confirms it, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I think Cams has done such an excellent job. A lot of people criticise on Formula 4, but I think it's the right category.
So you were over there and you were a part of the Red Bull sort of drivers development. Everybody hears about that. What does that actually entail? What do they give you out of that?
Well, they just supported me on my journey towards Formula 1. Ideally, I would have liked to stay with them for a few more years. They would have taken me all the way up to Formula 1. But I did a lot of simulator.
So when you say they support you, I mean, is it full financial support? Or
no, it's not full financial support, no.
So you've still got to bring your own sponsors and all that sort of thing.
To a
they
degree,
just sort of help.
Yeah, exactly.
I suppose that smooths the pathway as well, because if you've got someone from Red Bull knocking at the door. So do you know why that ended? I mean, what was there a criteria that was set that says that this is, you know, what you've got to do in order to move on to the next stage?
It is a bit of a touchy subject, just because I was given a criteria and I did meet all those requirements. But everyone knows Red Bull is such a cutthroat environment, and look, I really, if I had my time back, I would have done everything the same. So there wasn't really much I could do.
You raced all over Europe. What are your favourite tracks? What are the great experiences?
By far, Monaco. That was insane. Just to be there at the same time as the Formula 1 weekend. You saw the glitz and glamour of Monaco, you know, coming out of the tunnel, you just saw all the yachts on the left-hand side. So, you know, it was challenging to keep my mind focused on the racing and not what was going on around me.
I imagine it is not necessarily the yachts that was keeping you distracted, more of the people that were on the yachts, perhaps.
I was focused on the racing.
Of course, of course. So with the decision to come back to Australia, one of those reasons is you're wanting to complete your schooling, I understand.
Yeah, exactly. I'm in Year 12 this year. When I did move overseas and raced with Red Bull, I left school for 2 years. And while I was there with my family, we made the decision that it was actually quite important to finish school here in Australia. So we made the decision together to finish it off.
Now, the decision to come back and race Formula 4 this weekend at Albert Park, what's that decision?
Well, Formula 4 actually fits in with my school work really well this year. The season finishes in June. So, I mean, by the time the season finishes, I can focus on my schooling for the rest of the year.
Now, how many rounds are there this year? I mean, they have cut back considerably. The other thing that they've done is they've also sort of expanded the driver qualifications in terms of like the age and all the rest of it. Is that just for this meeting or is that for the whole season?
It's such an important race, the Grand Prix. So, I mean, you understand Cam's decision to sort of do a few things different, like allow Jaden to race for this particular round. But I mean, when you've got an opportunity this big, you have to make the most of it, yeah.
And I think there's what, 18 cars?
18 cars, yeah.
So that'll be different?
Yeah, it's maximum capacity for the grid, yeah. Well, for the F4 grid.
After that, what are your decisions? You're going to follow the rest of the season. What are you looking for the future? Is your future back here in Australia or are you still looking to race in Europe?
Yeah, look, despite all the sort of setbacks we've had over the past few years, I'm still 100% focused and committed to try race Formula 1 again. I've still got hope and I'm still working hard for it every single day. So if I can race Formula 3 in Europe next year, that would be the ideal scenario.
And of course, in order to do that, unless sort of, you know, I don't know whether your parents are multi-millionaires, probably not. So despite the lovely way you've presented yourself tonight, you're obviously looking for sponsors. How hard is it to get that sort of the level that we're talking about?
Well, I've got a great support group that with me. So Andy, my manager, Stu, my dad, my whole family, we work all the time just to try get some sponsors. It is challenging. People don't quite understand how hard we work, all race car drivers behind the scenes. So I find myself very often staying up behind 12 and getting up before 4 just to try keep this racing dream alive.
Well, good luck with it. Good luck this weekend. We'll keep in touch with your career in the future. But for now, Luis Leeds, thanks for joining us in Pit Lane.
Thank you very much, Brett. Cheers.
And thank you to you for watching up until this point. We've got more coming up. When we come back, there will be music from Green Hatch Blues, also international news from NASCAR and IndyCar as well. This is In Pit Lane. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Okay, well, thank you for that. That's great if you will stay with there for a moment. So,
no worries.
So, in terms of what you're looking at overseas, and is it definitely just still focused on Formula 1, or are you just looking at things like World Endurance Championship, GT, that sort of thing?
My goal is to race at the highest level there is. I've worked so many hours of my life just to try pursue this goal of racing Formula 1, and I'm just going to work my butt off until I get there. So.
And I think that's good, and that's good to hear, because I know many years ago, and this will tell you how long ago we've been doing this thing, but I asked a bloke called Mark Webber a similar question, and he gave a similar answer. He just said, no, I'm not, I could come back, I could race touring cars, I could race it back, I could do a lot of things in Australia. I'm not, I'm going to Formula 1, I'm staying there until I make Formula 1, and of course, we all know what happens.
Yeah, that's it. So
yeah, which is great for that. Okay, well, good luck with it. What we're going to do now, though, for all of you watching on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel and also on Facebook, we've got live music. Well, it's not live. Well, we'll give you the now. Remember, if you are watching on Facebook, to subscribe to us on In Pit Lane. We saw the thing there. You subscribe to us and click the little bell thing for notifications. That way, you know whenever we do something, whether it's live or recorded, you'll get there. There you go. Subscribe to In Pit Lane and use the bell. You got to click the bell because that does something. It's got something to do with algorithms. I've got no idea what algorithms are, but all the young people are talking about algorithms. It's very exciting, I believe. Speaking of someone, if you look into blues algorithms, you'll find our guest tonight, Green Hatch Blues. He's, we'll give you all of the details later, but he's playing all over Melbourne. I'll give you a few dates now. This weekend, he's at Beneath Driver Lane. That's in CBD. He's also at the 12 Bar in Belgrave on the 23rd, 24th of the St Kilda Blues Festival. You're going to want to see him because he is a great singer-guitarist, and he did a couple of songs for us. He's going to take us out at the end of the night for Channel 31, but right now, as a bonus for all of you watching live online, this is Green Hatch Blues and Crazy About My Baby.
I sure love my baby, I love the way she smiles. Well, I love my baby, I sure love the way she smiles. I'm a happy man, I'll be in her arms in a little while. Well, I'm mad about my baby, mad about my baby. Well, I'm mad about my baby. Because my baby's mad about me. I sure love my baby, knows how to rock and roll. To my very soul, I'm crazy about my baby, crazy about my baby, crazy about my baby. Well, I'm crazy about my baby, I'm crazy about my baby, 'cause my baby's crazy about me.
Welcome back to Channel 31's In Pit Lane program, and coming up a little bit later on in the program we'll have music from Green Hatch Blues, and Luis Leeds is still alongside me. And Luis, coming up this weekend, Sebring and a whole bunch of other things happening in the United States, including IndyCar. Is that sort of an area you might be looking at apart from Formula One?
Yeah, I love all forms of motorsport, so hopefully one day I'll get a taste of an IndyCar.
Well, certainly there's been plenty of action in the United States over the weekend, including, of course, as I said, coming up this weekend is the Sebring 12 Hour and the new Sebring 1,000 mile race in the WEC. Also this weekend we saw the start of the IndyCar season, and of course in Phoenix there was NASCAR. There is always NASCAR. What's on in Motorsport, brought to you by the Motoring Diary, your must-have guide for all motoring enthusiasts. This week in Motorsport, and apparently there's something happening at Albert Park. Sell a kidney, mortgage the house or rob a bank, but be there for the opening shot in the World Formula One Championship. Oh, and there's supposed to be some sort of touring car race there as well. There's plenty to see at the Motorsports Fan Zone, and if you go on Friday night, you can watch as In Pit Lane goes live with a Grand Prix preview special. The live stream will kick off at 8 p.m, so come along and say good day or something similar. Speaking of Friday, it's Fast Friday at Calder Park. Race your road car or bike on the famous Calder Park quarter mile. It all kicks off this Friday evening. For more details, check out the Calder Park drag racing page. Welcome back to In Pit Lane. Well, coming up a little bit later on in the show, we've got some live music for you with Green Hatch Blues. He's going to play us out a little bit later on the program. We'll give you all of his dates as well. Also, we've got more news for you. Lewis, you mentioned Formula One. What about IndyCar? That's a principal impressive series overseas. Is that something you're interested in?
Yeah, well, I love all forms of motorsport, so if I can get a taste of IndyCar one day, that would be incredible.
Well, the IndyCar season got underway last week on the streets of St. Petersburg in Florida. Also coming up this week, the Sebring 12-hour and a new race, the Sebring 1,000 miles in the World Endurance Championship. And, of course, in Phoenix, there was NASCAR. There is always NASCAR. Brought to you by the Motoring Diary, your must-have guide for all motoring enthusiasts. This week in motorsport, the news. We're going to the news. If people are watching that, and I don't know why that's doing that.
We've got the international map.
Good evening. Welcome. We are in a new studio and we have lots of new people on the program. Are we going to, what are they going to do in the control room? Are we going to start again? Do I have to, surely we don't have to start the news again. It's still going. That's on YouTube. And YouTube it's still going. We come out for the motoring, we come out with the Motoring Diary with what's on in motorsport. Then back to me. I say a few things, and then I say the NASCAR thing, and then we go to the news.
Look, we can just improvise
Yeah.
I reckon that might run a bit smoother.
So have they got the second half of the news?
Have you got the second half of the news out there?
Is that queued up?
Is the second half of the news queued up? The news. Okay, right.
We've got the news.
We've got the news. And we have 4 minutes for 31.
No, we're going to have a lot more. I think the timing has gone out the window now because I'm going to have to restart. Okay, I think we're going to have to start that whole segment again. Could we please restart that segment? Because otherwise we're going to get there and we will do 7 minutes.
Right.
7 minutes all up and we'll make it fit. Okay, so can we come in from... This is the behind-the-scenes stuff that you only get when you're watching us live. We're going to come in from the Motoring Diary again. Everyone listening out there, we're coming in from the Motoring Diary, then back to me, then the news, then I will introduce Luke with the song, and then end credits and off to bed.
Right. Did you get all that? Yep. Okay.
Okay, so we start. So we start that again. We're in a new studio, and there's all sorts of things. Okay, we ready?
Are we ready? Count me in. No. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
What's on in motorsport? Brought to you by the Motoring Diary, your must-have guide for all motoring enthusiasts. This week in motorsport, and apparently there's something happening at Albert Park. Let's just kill the motoring. Could we just kill the Motoring Diary? Sorry, Motoring Diary. We'll kill. You've had lots of exposure, but let's. Okay, I'm going to start from the top. I'm going to pretend we're down. I'll cut that in later. Okay. Welcome back to In Pit Lane here on Channel 31. Coming up a little bit later on the program, we've got Green Hatch Blues with some live music, and he'll be taking us out a little bit later on the program. We'll tell you about all of his gigs coming up. He's got lots of gigs around Melbourne. Also coming up this weekend, there's lots of international news happening, of course, in the United States. And Lewis, is that an area of IndyCar and in the United States scene? Is that something you're looking at?
Yeah, well, I love every form of motorsport, so if I could get a taste of an IndyCar, that'd be great.
Do you think it's still a sort of an entry level into Formula One or an alternative?
Yeah, definitely. You've seen like there's Super Formula over in Japan. There's many categories all around the world that you can.
I think the Super Formula are almost as fast as Formula One, aren't they?
Yeah, they're
blisteringly quick cars. Well, as we said, lots happening in the United States. There was, of course, IndyCar, and there was, of course, NASCAR. There is always NASCAR. What's on in Motorsport, brought to you by the Motoring Diary, your must-have guide for all motoring enthusiasts. That's the news.
Right.
Just run the news. Just run the news. Just run the news. Kyle Busch returned to the winner's circle with victory at last weekend's NASCAR Ticket Guardian 500 at Phoenix Motor Speedway. Busch took the lead from Ryan Blaney on lap 298 after another race with plenty of lead changes and plenty of incidents. Brad Keselowski was an early casualty when he hit the wall on lap 64. Alex Bowman brought out a caution after also making contact with the concrete, not once, but twice, just for good measure. Ryan Prix crashed out on lap 227 before also going back for seconds on lap 234. Australian Will Power started from pole as the 2019 IndyCar season got underway on the streets of St Petersburg, Florida. Power led early, but engine woes for Sebastian Bourdais and Ryan Hunter-Reay caused a restart where Felix Rosenqvist took the lead. Ed Jones hit the wall before being hit by Matthias Lees to bring out another full-course yellow. Joseph Newgarden leapfrogged Power in the pit lane, and when the Aussie got stuck behind a slow Marco Andretti, his chance for victory was over. Newgarden held on from a fast-charging Scott Dixon, with Power in third and wondering what might have been.
We just put ourselves in a tough position pitting early there. We had no defence, and really me losing that position on the restart, then I was stuck. I couldn't pull a gap to negate the cold tyre penalty because I was pitting early. So just kind of did my best to maintain a third place finish. I mean, that was as much as we could do in that situation, and got more points than the last 2 years. So we're in the game.
And that's about all we have time for this week on In Pit Lane. Remember, coming up, we'll bring you all the news from the Grand Prix over the weekend, and also all the international news, including all the news from Sebring, and all sorts of wonderful things next week on the program. Now, taking us out tonight, we have live music a lot on the program. We like live music on the show, and we like sort of showcasing local talent. Our talent tonight is Luke Greenhatch, who goes by the name of Greenhatch Blues, and he's playing all over Melbourne over the next couple of days. I've got some of his details here. Is this Saturday at Bernice Driver Lane in the CBD. He'll be on at 8 o'clock there, and also on the 23rd he'll be at the 12 Bar in Belgrave, and the 24th at the St Kilda Blues Festival. That's coming up on the 24th of this month, and a whole bunch of other dates as well. Check out his details on Facebook and Instagram under Greenhatch Blues. But right now he's taking us out, and until we see you from, once again, thanks to our guest Luis Leeds tonight. Thank you to you for watching, and we'll see you next week on In Pit Lane. But right now, here's Greenhatch Blues, and up to you.
If you're searching, gather round. If you're hurting, need that sound. Oh, be ready for change. But don't expect to change all this. It's up to you. It's your will, what you make it. It's up to you. It's your will, what you make it. Did you miss all the signs?